Hello, I'm Eric Ford, and I'd like to talk to you for just a few minutes about strategic control and external control of organizations. This is part 6 of 6 in a lecture series on strategic control. External governance. I've mentioned this throughout the lecture, and as a matter of fact, the introductory lecture talking about the triple aim in organizations like the Institute for Health Improvement, the Leapfrog Group, Bridges to Excellence, on and on and on. Many organizations are trying to influence healthcare organizations, meaning hospitals, doctors, insurance companies, to change the way they do business. And all of these are external forces on these organizations. And these are the methods that ensure managerial actions lead to shareholder value maximization. Again, this is the classical economic role for an organization, is to maximize shareholder wealth, and do not do harm to other stakeholders. Notice the difference, shareholder and stakeholder. The shareholders are indeed stakeholders in their own right, however, they may have different incentives. And what are stakeholders? They are groups from both inside, I would tell you it's both inside and outside the control of the corporate governance system. So the market for corporate control. We talk about how markets influence organizations. If they don't see them behaving in ways that they think are appropriate, they will harm the stock price. One example might be British Petroleum, who when they had a spill in the Gulf of Mexico, the stock price took a hit that was probably disproportionate to the financial damage that it was likely to do to British Petroleum, BP, in the near term or even in the long term, although there was a great deal of uncertainty about what the administration of the United States government was going to do with respect to lawsuits and other actions. Auditors. Hiring external auditors. This is sort of a best practice, and in many instances it's actually a requirement for organizations. Banks and analysts. These are stocks, people who buy and sell stocks on people like mine and yours behalf, and they have analysts who go in and talk about, are they doing what needs to be done? Regulatory bodies. These are typically thought of as being governmental, although there's, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of non-governmental organizations that are trying to regulate industries fairly actively. Media and other public activities. Watchdog organizations. We see the role that the internet has played in providing external control of organizations. The big one, and this is getting to be rather old news at this point, was something called the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. And this arose after Enron and a couple other organizations, WorldCom, had fairly dramatic collapses that were attributable to bad management and lack of oversight on the part of their board of directors and governors. And the Sarbanes-Oxley Act put some of the burden back into those boards in particular to make sure that they were engaged. It also talked about auditors. It essentially severed the consulting and auditing work of an organization, and we saw that when I graduated from undergrad, they were called the Big Eight, but they were organizations like Arthur Andersen, Panelker Foster, Ernst & Young, on and on. Used to be able to rattle them all off. But the Big Eight at the time, and I think we're down to like the Big Three now, no longer do both consulting and audit work. So that relationship is severed. Your auditor should not do other things for you other than audit. You should also switch your auditor every 10 or 12 years at an outside time horizon, and they should understand that that's just part of you doing good business, and there should not be hurt feelings on the part of the auditors for having them rotate out like that. They talk about retention of records, a minimum of 5 years, and I think there's actually been some subsequent legislation that's pushed different forms of records out to further longer time horizons. Lead partners auditing a firm should be changed at least every 5 years. So I talked about that earlier. They say every 5 years. It depends on your business. It does take firms a little while to get familiar with large companies, and it does depend on that. So what did Sarbanes-Oxley say about chief executive officers and chief financial officers? They must fully reveal off-balance sheet finances. In other words, what were they doing at Enron? Well, they were setting up off-balance sheet corporations at other places and pushing a lot of the losses that they were experiencing off into those off-balance sheet organizations, essentially lying to the shareholders about the value of the company. And then they have to vouch for the accuracy of the information personally. So that's a fairly large hurdle, because in large corporations it's difficult to tell what's going on in every unit. Executives must promptly reveal the sale of shares in firms they manage. So these are the sorts of things that are triggers to concern among shareholders, and they're not allowed to share when other employees cannot. So the way people are vested in stocks has been aligned more fully. That's it. I'll wrap up there. I hope you've enjoyed the series, and we'll look forward to talking to you in the next section.